here's what we're going to do, folks. As we mentioned, shut up now, giggling back there, giggle boy. Giggle boy or giggle bite. On Patreon, we're going to do some reviews of classic events throughout history, as well as some of the more recent current events, so that we can get a good perspective on things. And we're also, in some cases, when we can find something that everybody would have access to fairly easily, we're going to watch it, you and I, and talk about it. Hopefully some of these will be events that I actually have firsthand knowledge of, like this one coming up, because I was there. I'm in the fucking video. And this is the first ever 5-star match. We've talked about it so much in the past. Jerry Lawler versus Terry Funk, March 23rd, 1981, the Memphis Mid-South Coliseum. It was the first match that Lawler and Funk had in Memphis since Terry was the NWA champion in 76. He had not been back to Memphis in 5 years. And the period of time this occurred in was important, and you'll understand the match better if you understand that a lot of people may not know these days. It was so huge in the business for so long, but Lawler was out for most of 1980 with a broken leg. He had just turned heel in the fall of 79 again, and he was doing some incredible promos, and, you know, everything was cooking, and Jerry Jarrett had been telling him, well, now, Jerry, that flag football game you're playing on weekends with your friends down in Memphis, that could get dangerous. We could be fucked, right? Oh, Jerry, it's okay. Well, the world's stiffest referee, Jerry Calhoun, broke Lawler's leg at a game of flag football that they played practically full contact. Lawler got his foot stuck in mud, and Calhoun hit him, and boom goes the leg, and boom went the territory. And everything that they could do, bringing in Handsome Jimmy, that's when Jimmy Hart got pushed to the forefront and became the top manager and the leader of the First Family, and they brought in Billy Robinson as a fucking CWA champion, and that everything they could do all year, you couldn't replace Lawler in that territory. So by the end of December, and he had even come back when his leg was still fucked up, and they had a cast match with Lawler and Killer Carl Krupp, where Krupp had to put a cast on from his foot all the way up to his hip also, and Lawler had a real one on, and Lawler's doing a leg drop with the fucking cast with the broken leg in it, right? That was in the summertime. So basically, he set himself back and ended up, he didn't come back until the end of December 29th, 1981. I'll never forget that date because the previous week. 1980. Sorry. December 20. I forgot that date. December 29, 1980. Because the previous week, Lawler had been gone practically the whole year from the territory, and Memphis, the crowd for the previous week's matches was like 2,800, which was the all-time low, I believe, for a wrestling match in the Mid-South Coliseum at that point in time, since they'd been running it starting in 1972. And because at this point, they'd milked him that Lawler was coming back, milked him he was coming back, and finally they just said, fuck it, let us know when he comes back, right? So basically, the following week, December 29th, he was ready. They couldn't even wait till the first week of January, and you never ran a big show at the end of the month, especially after Christmas in those days, because the checks weren't out yet. But they went from 27 or 2,800 people to 11. I believe the official figure was 11,069, but it was a sellout, and they turned about 1,000 away. Lawler in the main event against the Dream Machine. That's why they brought Troy in, Dream Machine, because he was going to be Jimmy Hart's guy and Lawler's opponent in all the places that they couldn't get a big-name star for. And it ended up, Dream works hard and got so over that he stayed in the territory next several years. He was, over as a regular from that. But the idea was Jimmy Hart would bring in bounty hunters to break Lawler's leg again, because Lawler made no secret of it that he was going to go through whoever Hart had, and he was going to get to Hart, and he was going to break Hart's leg because of the whole, when Lawler had broken his leg, Hart the next week on TV gave Lawler's crown to Paul Ellering and said, what do you do with a racehorse when he breaks his leg? You shoot him. Lawler was not cued in on that ahead of time and watched that laying in Baptist Hospital in Memphis with a broken leg and was highly displeased which Jimmy Hart always swears to this day is why that when they were handcuffed together when Lawler was making his comeback, first thing Lawler did was break Jimmy Hart's jaw. Anyway, all these people were going to be brought in by Jimmy Hart, break Lawler's leg, and put him out, because if he doesn't, he's going to get even with me. He's going to break my leg, which he ended up doing that summer in a match. Not for real, like the jaw, but in story. So they brought Hulk Hogan. They brought Crusher Blackwell. They brought Austin Idol. They brought they brought every one of Joe LeDuc, every one of Lawler's enemies that they could get a hold of for the previous 10 years, they brought back. And they didn't do, as far as I recall, they didn't do less than 7,000 people from the first week of January through like May that year, with all of these challengers coming in, at least in the Coliseum. They had, I think, a show at the Cook. But the biggest, and Hulk Hogan drew, I think, 9,000 people at that point. And that's the famous footage where it looks like Lawler won by pinfall, but he really didn't. But if you look, they edited it in such a way, but he did get the full body slam on Hogan. Anyway, one of them was Terry Funk that they brought in, and another one was Dory. And then they started having tag matches. I mean, one night, I went down specifically from Louisville to see this. They had Lawler and Jack Brisco versus Dory and Terry Funk. And that was, and then they had Lawler and Plowboy Frazier in a Texas death match against Dory and Terry. And that was great, but different in its own way. But the first match between Lawler and Funk was made a no disqualification match, because they knew they were going to work a program and they wanted to do some crazy shit in the first match. That's why this match that we're about to talk about is a no DQ match, even though this was the first time that they had faced each other. And this was, as I said, at the end of March, so people were getting used to the fact that Lawler was knocking these guys down because he was beating everybody. And that's when he had done the strap before as a babyface. But this is when the strap really started getting established. And at that point, every time that he had dropped the strap, since he had come back from his broken leg, he made the comeback, they went in the finish, and he usually won. That's why what they did in this match when the strap came down gets a roar from the crowd, because it didn't actually mean the finish. Lawler drops his strap. Terry's fucking ready to go. Lawler rubs his hands together. He's ready to go. And the people just come up because, oh shit, there's going to be more. It was that simple, because he had trained them and done it at such the right time through this whole thing. Anyway, the reason why this is the first 5-star match is because both me and Weasel Dooley, we knew that we had to see the first match in 5 years between Jerry Lawler and Terry Funk. So we drove down to Memphis, and I shot pictures at ringside, and thankfully I did. And the rating system had been established the previous year, as the story's been told, from me reading TV Guide or the Leonard Maltin movie review book and talking to Norman Dooley on the phone. And the scale was this. 1 star meant, well, we couldn't wait for that to be over with. 2 stars was, well, that was about what we expected. 3 stars was, wow, that was a really good match. And 4 stars was, holy shit, they tore the house down. Otherwise, there was no criteria, because all the matches were different, and we weren't looking at work rate. We were looking at how we saw it in that arena at that time. So there was only 4 stars because there were only 4 stars in the movie reviews, right? But when we finished watching this match in the building, and the people, I mean, the crowd was so drained that it was almost like they were all having a cigarette. As a matter of fact, it was before the smoking laws. They all were. They were horrified by what they had just seen and excited at the same time. This was the goddamnedest thing you can tell on tape, but this was the goddamnedest thing to see live you've ever seen, because you could hear all through the Mid-South Coliseum Funk shrieking at the top of his lungs, "Pig! You pig! Suey pig!" He's fucking insane, and you see the blood spurting, because Lawler, not known as a bleeder, hit one for this occasion, and he's wearing the white tights. And you can see the blood spurting out of his head as he's shaking his head, and you can see Funk's eyes, and just the way that they did this. It got to the point where when they finally go outside for the finish and Lawler is giving Funk that chair back and he's whacking him with it, you watch the fans in the front row and they are literally backing up over the backs of their chairs, horrified, trying to get away from these fucking maniacs. And so me and Weasel looked at each other and said, God damn, that's more insane than anything we've ever seen. It's 5 stars. And that's how the first 5-star match came to be. But I wish there was better footage, and then again, I don't, because I like the old style of Memphis, the camera in the stands. It looks like old fight films. There's so much more credibility to it than the high-def camera in your face, multi-camera shoots of today. But I wish the manner in which this was shot, they put a camera about halfway up in the stands, and they were shooting on 3/4-inch U-matic tapes for the old television personnel in the audience. And they ran a microphone cable about 150 feet down to ringside from the camera to Lance at the announce desk. And so that's the audio you get is from Lance's microphone. While he's doing commentary, the audio from the crowd is him sitting in the middle of the building, but the ring's not mic'd. The people aren't mic'd. You can still hear Funk shrieking, and Lance calls attention to it. And, they could only zoom in so close because they were so far back from the fucking match or from the ring to begin with. So you can't really get the close-ups of the spurting blood in the head and everything, but you get an idea of what this chaos was like. And it's the people that you need to watch as much as the action in the ring, because listening to and hearing and seeing the people starting to live and die with every move and every change of momentum and every change of offense and defense is what made this thing partly, what it was. But anyway, we've gone on YouTube and we found that there's 2 versions of this match, right? And one of them includes the entrances and the first little flurry of action after the bell rings, which contains some great Terry Funk stuff.
My favorite.
But my favorite too, but that's also the shitty version. The cleaner version on YouTube begins with a lockup right after Funk gets back in the ring and then goes from there, and that's about 10 minutes. We're gonna point you to the good one just because we want you to see the best copy, but if you really like it, go back and look at the other 13-minute version that has the entrances, because Lance was doing boxing entrances as Terry Funk is walking down the ring or down the aisle, and he's got the towel and Hart's with him and the spotlight's on him. Lance is saying, and he played Frankie the Thumper in Paradise Alley. He's a former NWA world champion from Amarillo. He talked him all the way to the ring and introduces him when he gets in the ring, and then he does the same thing for Lawler, gives him all the plaudits, wrestler of the decade, gives him the big build-up, Jerry the King Lawler, in the voice only Lance had. And then they do a little flurry at the beginning that ends up with Funk rolling out of the ring to get away, getting tied up in the fucking ringside rope, not knowing that he's tied up in it, allegedly, rolling back into the ring to fight some more and getting tripped up, and it's goddamn insane. That was Terry.
I love that part so much.
And he could do it naturally.
Yeah.
You couldn't see him, I'm going to tie myself up in this rope on purpose, or I'm going to do this on purpose. He just would do things, and it looked like, oh shit, he just fell out of the ring backwards on his head. But anyway, so that's the reason for this match coming about. That's the time frame. That's where it is. It's on YouTube. Jerry Lawler versus Terry Funk, Memphis, March 23rd, 81. Is there any other thing we need to tell them as to how to find this match?
Well, a couple things real quick. The actual video title is Bloody No DQ Match, Jerry Lawler versus Terry Funk with Jimmy Hart, 3/23/81 Memphis Wrestling. If you go to YouTube and you search for Terry Funk, Jerry Lawler, it should be potentially the second thing that comes up. You'll see various things, but this one has a runtime of 10:59. 10 minutes, and 59 seconds.
And the other one that has the entrances is a poorer quality copy, but is 13:08. So you got that going for you.
2 quick questions before we start, Jim. You're at ringside shooting photos. Where did Weasel Dooley sit?
Weasel Dooley, I got him a ticket over. I think he was on the corner behind the announce table, and he was watching my camera bag.
And then obviously a lot of people know about the Empty Arena match, and we are in the era of the Empty Arena show. The Empty Arena match was what, a month later?
Yes, probably about a month later. It actually, the date that it's given is the date that it aired on television, but what they did was they recorded it the previous week before the match, like 1 p.m, before the matches in Memphis, and nobody knew about it. And as a matter of fact, I didn't get to go to that because Lawler forgot to tell me. He ended up having his friend Robert Reed is the photographer you see wandering around in a couple of stray shots because he wanted Lance there and he wanted some pictures for the magazines. And the motherfucker didn't tell me he was going to do this. I would have driven down there just for this. But anyway, so that's the date that it actually aired. But one more thing, the reason the Empty Arena match is so fondly remembered, it was different. Nothing like that had ever been done. It let Terry Funk show that he was crazy, the whole 9 yards. But at the time, the reason why it was done was because Terry had a month tour of Japan for Giant Baba that he had to leave on. And he wasn't going to be back until mid or late May, where they could pick the program up again. So he came up with the idea that, he'd get the stick in the eye, and then he'd come back for revenge with the eye patch and everything. Once they did it, and they came back and resumed the program, they realized they made a fatal mistake. You know what the mistake was?
They put sympathy on Terry Funk?
They hurt the wrong guy. Nobody had sympathy for Funk, but they thought the program was settled because Funk had done all this shit and said all this shit, and then Lawler spikes him in the eye, and he's gone for a month. When he came back, nobody wanted to see him get heat or get revenge on Jerry Lawler. They had wanted to see Jerry Lawler get revenge on Terry Funk, which he did. So as Buddy Wayne aptly quoted, we hurt the wrong guy. Of course, Lawler didn't have a deal to go to work to Japan for Giant Baba, but if Funk had hurt Lawler and Lawler had been out a month, when he came back, it would have sold out because they didn't want to see Lawler get even. But they didn't, so they had to start building the program again from scratch when Terry came back, because people are like, well, it's going to be a great match, but the more important thing is Lawler got even with him. So now they had to get heat on Terry all over again when he came back.
But it had only been a few months since Lawler returned. Could you have taken him off the shows for a month?
No, that's what I'm saying. You couldn't have done that either. But it would have been a sellout if Terry Funk had hurt Jerry Lawler and he'd been out a month and came back. But as we saw just several months previous, the 3 or 4 weeks that he was gone would have been fucking miserable. So you couldn't do that. But for this to have worked and actually been a money drawing memorable angle rather than just a memorable angle because of the uniqueness of it, they hurt the wrong guy. Anyway.
And I guess the only other note here, Jim, is for the people who want to watch along as we are watching it and you're doing commentary over it, click on the video, pause it, go to 0.00, right where it begins, and we will tell you when to press play, when we both have it loaded up.
Yes, we will tell. Don't do anything till we tell you to do it.
That's right. Follow orders. Obey.
Comply.
Okay, Jim, I'm going to assume everyone is in full compliance mode right now. So everyone, click on the video, pause it at 0.00, and we are going to press play in a few seconds. Right after Jim does a big reho, I will say start now.
Reho.
Start now.
Boom. Here we go with the lockup. And you got to go back and listen to Lance's epic call of this thing also, and just his incredible voice. But look, this is tight. Funk, he's all over Lawler, and look, Lawler has the body language. And this was just, as I said, the bell had just rung. So, of course, Lawler gets hung up. Everybody said at the time, well, Lawler can't even take a bump through the ropes. Yeah, it's because it didn't look good. That's the whole idea.
And there's you. There's you.
Who's that fucking photographer at ringside?
Where'd you get that plaid shirt?
Oh, shut up. It was the early 80s.
Those bell
Yeah,
bottoms?
I had to get out of the way of that one. No, they weren't bell bottoms. They're just blue jeans.
Look at the crowd, though. I mean, obviously it's nothing new to you, but women, white people, black people, old people, young people. I see a kid sitting on someone's lap on the right side.
There are a couple of edits in this. Look at these punches by Funk and Lawler. Sell them. Boom. Couple edits in this just because of the format. I think at one point they have to change tape right in the middle of it. But this was, we figured, okay, it was nothing new for Lawler to get the shit kicked out of him early in the match. A lot of times to establish a challenger, he would sell for the first 8 or 10 minutes. But in this case, they just opened up so quick and started hitting each other with heavy stuff so fast, there was no holes or whatever. This is why they made it a no DQ, because they knew they wanted to get wild. And look, once again, Terry, now watch the people. Just with jabs, they're jumping up and down and shit, and the old woman clapping over Lawler's shoulder. And there, Terry, oh my God, he didn't mean to do that. He just fell. He didn't know where he was.
Jimmy Hart with a kendo stick.
No, that's a cane. He got those canes at a costume shop in Memphis. And I've got 4 or 5 of them here in the vault. I used to carry some around for him. And Terry he's a one-man show here, right? As a matter of fact, I believe coming up is where he gets his juice. Yeah. Lawler rings the bell with his head. Boom. That old ship's bell. I wish somebody knew where that thing was, because that was the bell for, there's been a couple of edits in this version of the tape, but Funk's bleeding now. And he's starting to spurt all over the table. And Lawler's got that fucking stance where he stalks somebody, right? With both these guys, you can tell what the expression is on their face, even when you're in the back row of the bleachers and you're behind them, because their body language bears it out. A guy aggressive, a guy in pain, a guy happy, a guy fucking sad, whatever the fuck, you can tell. And Corey, and say a little bobble, because Lawler went to throw one, didn't know Terry was going to bend over, and he just stops. There's no big fucking, oh my God, you fucked up. And at this point, people are like, okay, now, Lawler's already got him bleeding. He's probably going to put him away anytime. But look, it's no DQ. Just to give the people a chance to see that Jimmy is not going to fucking roll over and play dead for this thing. So Lawler's going to fucking chase him under. That was Jimmy's favorite place to go, was under the ring. Because most of the time, Lawler wouldn't go after him there. Dundee'd go and pull him out and try to take his pants off.
Can you appreciate how good a match is while you're actually at ringside shooting photos and you have to concentrate on trying to get a shot?
Not as well as if you just sat back and watched it, but at the same time, you're right there and you can hear all the contact and you can hear the people going crazy. So part of it's even more frantic. I was worn out when this thing was over with from running around. And by the way, watch the headbutts. Lawler was the only one who could ever figure out how to sell those little running puppy dog headbutts. And right here, you see Lawler's about to get his. Watch Lawler's right hand. Here in a second. And Funk is spitting Lawler's blood up in the air. And this is when people really started shitting, because now they're seeing Lawler spurting blood. And they're seeing the white tights. Watch Lawler's right hand in a minute. He puts his blade back in Terry's tights. See? And there you go. And now he's selling. And look at he's selling. If somebody's biting on your head, that's the way you would sell. Fuck, get him off of me. And now watch these punches. And now Funk is bleeding. And Lawler's bleeding. And Lawler's got that body language. But everybody knows, fuck that. King ain't going to take a lot of that, right? So every time that he starts to stagger and bow up, you think, is this going to be Lawler's comeback? But at the same time, Funk is shrieking, pig, suey, and raking his fucking face and blah, blah, blah. And Funk now looks like a homicidal maniac. Look at him chasing Calhoun around. And the big double Baba chop. Lawler's got some good color on him for once. And Funk just cutting the promo and slapping him in the face. And this is what starts waking the king up here in a second. And you got to go back and watch this with volume, folks, because when Lawler starts bowing up, well, no, wait, I think he's going to get thrown out of the ring first. Yes, he does. And they made another goddamn edit. Oh, to give Hart his shot. Just one shot. And now I believe he's about to start to bow up here in a few minutes. But anyway, you can see I got a great shot of this, as a matter of fact, as he turned around right there, pointing down at Lawler to the people like, look at what I'm doing to your boy. And those heavy hands. And Lance makes the fucking observation that Funk's fists are heavily taped, almost like casts. And he's trying to get the referee to stop it. The guy's spurting blood, and he's hammering down on him.
Get that vendor out of there.
Yeah, well, they still sold popcorn and drinks and shit in the middle of the matches back then. Here we go. Anyway, this is what I'm saying. Now, look at the people. Boom. Lawler looks up, shakes his head. Look at him start to stand up. That's all it takes. They're all shit. Watch this one. Now when he gives that puppy dog look like, fuck you, one more. Here comes the strap. Look at the people.
Yeah.
But now they just square off. Usually Lawler is throwing and other guy's catching. Now they start getting louder because this is not going to be it. They're fighting even. And it's hard to have a 1-2 with a left-handed guy. And Terry's left-handed as he is. But at the same time, once Lawler starts pitching, boom, Funk takes the exaggerated heel bump. Look at that little stagger step. The people are standing even more. And they know this is going to be the finish, right? God damn, you'd have to think Lawler's strap has come down. It's going to be the finish. Here comes the fist off the ropes. It's over now. Boom. But no. We'll get Hart too, and listen how much heat Jimmy had. Boom. He'd only been taking bumps for about 6 months at that point.
And now you get the chair in the ring.
And now you get the chair, and listen to everybody. Holy shit. And now they get quiet. Now they all start sitting down. It's not over. Lawler's in trouble. And now the idea is that's the broken leg. That's the leg that he had in a cast for almost a year. And this fucking lunatic is taking this chair to the leg. But he can't keep it. That's why even a no DQ match, the referee takes away to keep it fair after the damage has been done. If this was today, he'd have hit him 74 times and blown the whole thing.
Only Calhoun gets to break that leg.
That's right. Bastard. He was the stiffest referee in the world. I love him. I love you, Jerry. Now what Funk is doing, he's tearing the tights off. He's trying to tear the tights off. He's trying to get his blade in them. And Lawler's trying to make it look like he's fighting back, but at the same time, he's going, Jesus Christ, Terry, you going to get these goddamn tights torn or not? Lawler, even back in those days, those hard Tennessee rings, even after a broken leg, Lawler, in doing that fist drop every night off the ropes, never wore knee pads and has never had knee surgery. I don't have any way to explain it.
He's a freak of nature.
He's a freak of fucking nature, but he was coming off the top rope on both of those knees in those Tennessee rings for 15 years before he started wearing fucking knee pads. So anyway, now Funk has got the tights not only torn open, but now he's got the Funk family spinning toe hold on, and he's holding the torn tights to get extra fucking leverage on the spinning toe hold. See, you can see him holding the rags of it. And now Lawler's selling, and the people are concerned again. Whereas they were concerned before, they're even more concerned now because this is not going according to the way it usually goes. This is a rare second set of heat in a Jerry Lawler single match. He didn't do that often because the big comeback was the big comeback. But when he did this, that's why it fucking registered. And Funk being Terry. So now what? And Jimmy gets the chair hung up in his fucking suspenders. And now finally Hart says, fuck it, break his leg, Terry, and look at Lawler feeding that leg. He knows what to do, but boom, at the same time, he goes out of the way, bam. And now this is where Kurt Hennig got these bumps from, ladies and gentlemen. Boom.
That's the one. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And look at the people now. Now it's like Lawler's got an axe, and they're fucking, the babies are about to come in the air. The more he hits him, and the more Funk pleads, and boom, and they're nice and flat, and Funk's feeding the leg. But it's a saying, look, he turns just at the right point because he's got bad knees. He wants that leg to be flat, but look at the cell on the way out. Watch the girls in the front row. There's Sherry. And oh my gosh, what was that? I can't remember her name, but she looked just like Rosemary Clooney. And the sound of the fucking chair hitting Funk's body. And they're goddamn trying like, oh shit, one of them with their hands on their head. And Lawler beats the count. It's not a DQ, it's a count out. And Lawler wins this one. And look at that fucking pop for a count out. Boom.
Well, there it is, the first 5-star match.
And everybody's now, well, nobody dove and they didn't even do a suplex and have a Corona and all that stuff. That was as legitimate looking and believable a fight as you could have in one take in front of 7,000 people that I've ever seen. And just Funk's personality. And the way that he was able to convey to that whole building that he was a raving lunatic, and the blood that was spurting out of both of their heads, and the way that the shots all looked good, especially for a big building, but at the same time, everybody was safe. That tore the fucking house down. And, you know, if you witnessed it live, you couldn't get it out of your mind, and everybody was worn out afterwards, but I think it still holds up to this day as an example of positioning and psychology and body language and the way who else sold like Lawler was selling when Lawler was when Funk was punching him and hitting him and he was rubber-legged and he was staggered. But then, as a matter of fact, that's where fucking Hulk Hogan got the Hulk up from. He was partners with Lawler in fucking Memphis 2 years beforehand. He saw Lawler bow up. He just never did it as well as Lawler. But that thing to me was an impeccable piece of business and not a mistake made and no buzz killers where you thought, oh, this is bullshit. You thought Terry was loony and insane, but you didn't think any of it was bullshit.
Oh, great stuff there.
So that's kind of stuff we're going to be doing, right? Only for longer matches and or events and things. And we're going to review some different stuff coming up next month, which is rapidly approaching since there's going to be no populated wrestling arenas going on.
Yeah, and it'll be good because we could do some matches. And again, it'll be reviews and some of these watch-alongs, but it'll be matches that you participated in or events you participated in, so you'll be able to give some insight and knowledge that wouldn't normally have. And then it'll also be stuff you've never seen or never watched before. And then we'll get your first hot take reactions to some
hot take reaction.
The good and the bad of professional
and
wrestling.
Even the ugly.
We may need to do the first 6-star match, too, at some point.
Well, that was in Louisville, and that was, as I recall, a couple months later, because we said, well, goddamn, they fucking topped Lawler and Funk with that 8-man fiasco. That was where the Louisville, it actually was the Louisville City Police back then, not the Metro Police. They hadn't joined the city and county government. The city police carried 3 people out, one of them plainly on camera, that tried to attack the guys as they were fighting throughout the building. Lawler took a bump backwards down the stairs from the top of the bleachers. There was all kinds of stuff going on. We'll maybe do that one next month.